So I thought, well, I'm going to just try to talk to the guy for a second and try to ease the tension here. So I said to this scary dude, I go, well, I've been talking, the author's name was Jay. I go, I've been talking to Jay for a little while, and, I know a lot about Jay and what he does, but, what do you do? And without flinching, the dude looks at me and he says, I change people's minds.
Huh.
And I thought, okay.
For some reason, I'm not inspired by that. I'm not like, well, change my mind. It's like, I want to get away from you. Hi, I'm Kyle Werkerly, certified professional ghostwriter. I'm glad you're listening as I welcome industry experts to share stories. You'll hear of lessons learned the hard way, overcoming professional hurdles, turning experience into actionable knowledge, and how to connect with your target audience. This is the Career Challenges Podcast. So welcome to the Career Challenges Podcast. My guest for this episode is Casey Demchak. And Casey Demchak is an expert copywriter and consultant with more than 20 years of experience. He has written sales pages and dynamic messaging platforms for dozens of coaches, speakers, and authors who have achieved Amazon and international bestseller status. Casey is also the author of the book, Essential Sales Writing Secrets. So Casey, welcome to the show.
Great. Thanks for having me, Kyle. It's a pleasure to be here.
Awesome. And you're in Denver right now, right?
I am in Denver, Colorado.
Mm-hmm. And I'm in San Antonio, Texas, and you were telling me that it's snowing there, or it's going to snow.
It's starting right now. We're going to have a foot of snow by the morning.
Yeah. Awesome. And today it was 82 degrees in San Antonio, so
it was warmer where you are.
Yeah, just a little bit. I was still able to go outside in shorts and a T-shirt, so quite the
I was yesterday.
Change.
I was yesterday. Yeah, I went to the gym in shorts and a T-shirt, and that's how it is here in Denver. It shifts quickly.
Awesome. And so let me start with your book, The Essential Sales Writing Secrets. What was your motivation for writing that?
I wanted to have a book out, and I actually self-published it in 2006, so it was a long time ago.
Awesome. And so it's still going strong then?
Well, I really not marketing as much. It's not reflective of what it was kind of written for small business owners who have to write their own marketing copy. So I want to do a new book soon, more focused on copywriting for authors and coaches.
Awesome. And so the book originally, I guess, was your experience writing sales copy?
Yeah. I've been writing sales copy for 25 years. So, kind of the idea behind it was to write something very straightforward that would teach small business owners and entrepreneurs kind of the ABCs, the 1, 2, 3 steps they need to know to write their own marketing copy.
Mm-hmm. And so, Donald Miller, who wrote the Story Brand Framework, or How to Build a Story Brand, his book, he basically boils it down to be clear in your message, be crystal clear in your message. Don't try to be clever. Don't try to be witty, because when you confuse, or he likes to say this, when you confuse, you lose. That's his little witty way to explain that. So for you in writing sales, is it about clarifying message, or is there some other, fine point that you always start with when you're writing sales copy?
Well, you absolutely do want to be clear and concise. You don't want to try to be too witty or clever, but you do want to lead people through kind of a motivating sequence. And there's different motivating sequences you can use with when you're creating sales copy. But you kind of want to start off a golden rule is start off talking about your prospect and their challenges and their needs and what they're going through. That gives you credibility when you show some empathy and understanding of what people want or their desire or a pain point or a challenge they face. If you do that, then you have a little bit of credibility because you're showing you understand their needs. Kind of the big mistake a lot of people make with sales copy is they start talking about themselves right away. I do this, we do this, and people don't, and that kind of turns people away. So you want to show that you have an understanding of the thirst, the desire, the challenge, the pain point that your audience has. And once you do that, you then have the credibility to then present what you're offering as a solution to their challenge.
All right. And for people who may not understand the pain point of their target audience, how can they go about learning that? Is it just, talking with them, or is it, trying to immerse yourself in their world?
Absolutely. You can do it through conversations, just day-to-day conversations. You can do it through surveys. Um, but yeah, before you really try to sell anything to a market, whether it's a book or an information product, you want to understand your market and know, what do they need? And really what you want to get into is understanding what they want.
Mm-hmm.
So if you understand their challenge, you have to get an understanding of what it is they want, and address that. You can always lead them to other things, but you want to start off really figuring out what they want.
Mm-hmm. Definitely. And so where did, I guess, you learn all of this? Did you go in and learn your copywriting pain points?
Well, what I learned, I started off my career in Hollywood. I was running around for 10 years trying to get a screenwriting career going. You get the big old break, like a lot of people,
Yeah.
and transitioned into copywriting, because what the kind of a similarities is that between screenwriting and sales writing is very conversational.
Mm-hmm.
In a story, you're moving people through a sequence of act breaks and plot points, and so you have sequential things in sales writing that you follow. Mm-hmm. So a lot of similarities. You definitely want to utilize storytelling in sales writing.
Definitely.
So I kind of made a transition at age 30 to copywriting, and I studied some really well-known copywriters, Bob Bly in particular.
Oh yeah, I read a lot of Bob Bly's stuff, and
Peter. I'm going
Peter.
to have a section in his next book. I'm really proud of that.
Awesome! Wow, how did you swing that? Is it just him somehow?
I know Bob Bly. I got to know him through an organization that we both are affiliated with,
mm-hmm.
and I developed what I call a core message platform.
Mm-hmm.
Big part of my copywriting service. And he's incorporating information about that and about me into an update of his book, The Copywriter's Handbook, which he has been publishing and revising for 30. It was actually the first book I bought about copywriting, and now I'm going to be in the next edition. So,
wow, coming full circle for you.
Full circle, yeah.
Awesome. I read the first book on copywriting I read was The Well-Fed Writer by Peter. What was his name? And he mentions Bob Bly a lot. He references Bob Bly a lot. I'm going to have to look up the name, but The Well-Fed Copywriter, which was the first book I read. And he does mention, going back to the pain points and really understanding what your client wants, so that way you can write, specifically to them as if you're having a face-to-face conversation, which is always
that's how you want to write. You want to, it's kind of the old, you want to give your copy what's commonly called the bar stool test, which might not be politically correct anymore, but
sure.
Basically, if you're sitting in a bar stool with someone talking about your product, you want to write in that tone, as opposed to writing copy that is too, like you're writing an English paper or something.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And then when I was learning copywriting, I was just reading books. I didn't go to school for it, which I probably should have. I didn't get a marketing degree. I got an art degree, which is kind of the dumbest mistake I've ever made. But when I was reading about it, I was working for a pest control company, and the guy who owned it, he was doing most of the stuff himself. So he's writing his own copy for flyers. And I'm like, wow, these are really bad. Can I write for you? I'll do it for free. And no, I got this. I know what I'm doing. I've been in the business for 30 years. And he was always cutting corners. He was always trying to, squeeze a little bit more money out of the business. And usually that came out of my paycheck, which is kind of why we parted company. Anyway, but to him, it was not worth it to pay for actual copywriting help, even if it was from a complete novice like me. So I'm like, I don't understand that. And so did you find yourself, or do you still find yourself kind of analyzing other copy and like, that's good, that's not so good?
Well, yeah, I'm always reading copy, especially it's so easy today because everything's online. So I'm always reading sales pages and what other people are doing, and always still trying to learn, So yeah, I do see some rotten stuff out there, but I see some good stuff too, and in good sales writing, there's a lot of really good, you kind of recognize fundamentals, and you see common mistakes too. So when you see good copywriting, you kind of see characteristics of good common copywriting. that good sales pages have in common. And when you see lousy ones, you see some characteristics common to lousy copywriting as well.
Definitely.
So it kind of cuts both ways.
True. And you had mentioned that a common mistake people make is they don't focus on their target audience's pain points. What's kind of some other common mistakes that you see in bad sales copy?
Well, the headlines.
Mm-hmm.
People make a mistake of trying to be too witty, too clever, too Madison Avenue and snappy, zappy, sexy, clever headlines. And that's a big mistake. Simple headlines work very well because you got to remember the two goals of a headline
mm-hmm.
are to grab the attention of your audience and then drive them into your body copy to learn more. So oftentimes simple headline types like how-to headlines, 7 reasons why, thought-provoking questions, and there's a bunch of headline types. But there's a lot of very good headline types that are very simple and straightforward that do the job of engaging people and driving them into your body copy. So you don't need something catchy, witty, sexy, clever. Because a lot of times you can make a little clever statement,
mm-hmm.
but it's just, is that something that's really driving people to want to know more? Or are you just making I'll give you an example. I worked years ago for a guy who was promoting, he was a teacher and he developed some video programs. So I'm going back a ways because he had some that he sold to school districts. And these programs were about teaching troubled kids various different things. And he had one on finances, teaching, high school kids, kind of troubled kids about money. And he came up with a headline that he really loved. And it was dollars and cents. One doesn't come with the other. Kind of clever, right? Because instead of CENTS, it was SENS,
Yeah, that's not the first time that's been used.
It's not it might have been, this is a while back. So yeah, it's been overused, number one. And I said to him, well, that's a catchy little statement. It's a kind of cliche. Mm-hmm. But what about it is going to make somebody dive into the copy? So I suggested to him, instead of that, and I noticed as I went through his material, he went over like 7 key areas, 7 principles. So I said, how about if we go with something like 7 things every high school kid should know about money? And he kind of paused. He goes, yeah. I go, because everyone's going to instantly be curious. What are the 7 things? Mm-hmm. And you've also told your audience that I've got my material organized into 7 distinct sections. I said, so that's more likely to get people's attention, make them curious. What are the 7 things? And you've told them it's going to be easy to go through 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Mm-hmm. And that's what he went with. So that's just a basic example of how something simple can actually be more effective than something that's, supposedly witty and catchy. So that's like the biggest thing I noticed with copywriting and bad copywriting. There are some other things too. Another big one is, like I mentioned earlier, people writing about themselves right away. Mm-hmm. We do this. I do this. I call it wee-weeing on your prospects. You look at a lot of copy and the first 4 or 5 sentences begin with the word we or I, depending whether it's a team or an individual. And then another thing is people they make the mistake of not writing what I call a you-directed voice. Yeah. You have to, you're writing to one person. So you use things like, and you really take it down to an area where you get into, instead, like with a business book, instead of writing, in my new book, I talk about 7 things. Mm. Instead, what you want to say is, when you read my new book, you will gain these 7. So it's very, when you read my book, you will gain. You want to make it very you-directed instead of me-directed. Mm-hmm. And then there's several other things, but several other characteristics of bad copy I can get into as well. But
yes, true. I mean, yeah, when it's stuff you're really passionate about, you could talk for hours and hours and hours.
Yeah, there's a lot of fundamentals that you want to learn before you write your own sales copy.
Definitely. So how has the industry changed just over your time being a copywriter? Has there been a huge shift, or has it really just kind of been the prevalence of people doing their own copy?
Well, obviously, when I started, there wasn't as much online as there is now, because I started like in the mid 90s. But a lot of the sales copy principles that applied to old school print, direct mail and sales letters that you put in envelopes. All those principles can have been shifted over to digital marketing.
Mm-hmm.
And in terms of, I'd say a big change is now you can get online and buy programs and things that will teach you, and I'm going to be offering online programs here early next year, things that can teach you how to write better copy. Whereas before you had to go maybe buy a book or something, and now you can start reading some blogs and buying some online programs that have more detail. So I think it's easier to learn, and I think it's essential to learn because every market is pretty crowded, especially if you're talking about authors and business books. You really want to learn good copywriting principles because if you take the time to write a really good book,
Mm-hmm.
It isn't like you put a book up on Amazon and people are going to just come. It's not if you build it, they will come.
Yeah.
You have to have really compelling marketing copy with a very distinct voice so that your marketing copy stands out in a market.
Mm-hmm. Definitely. I made that mistake myself, I have to admit. I self-published a couple of books, and I've been told like they're really well written, the people who've read them, and these are complete strangers. They weren't people I knew, so they weren't, just being nice. But they said, it's a well-written book. It's just I didn't market it. I didn't market it at all. I mean, I put out one or two posts or social media posts, and I think I got maybe 7 buyers in one day, which was, red letter day for me. It was pretty impressive. But of course, the book never took off. I'm not known as a best-selling author. And that experience, though, devastating, I have to admit, I really thought that my writing in and of itself would bring people in droves. And I found out that's not true. And so then that's what prompted me to really dig into, okay, what makes a book succeed as opposed to any other book? And so, definitely the copywriting and the sales are what I'm learning more about now, not just the writing, but learning more about now is promoting it and doing that. So then my question to you now, Casey, what do new authors or first-time authors, what should they be looking for when they're promoting their book?
Well, the first thing you want to do is organize a launch day. It's
Mm-hmm.
very smart to have a launch day, which is you get, you want to write a really basic setup of a launch day would be to have a sales page
Mm-hmm.
that you want to drive people to with social media and email. You want to sell as many books in one day as you can because on certain categories in Amazon, I've worked with authors who on one day sold 92 books and achieved bestseller status. You don't have to sell 20,000 books to be a bestseller. Sometimes you can just sell 100. Or I worked with an author who sold 220 books, spread out over a few countries, and earned the status of international bestselling author.
Wow.
So you want to have a launch day where you have your affiliates,
Mm-hmm.
your friends sending out emails about your book to their lists. So you would want to write a sales page. You want to write email swipe copy that you can give to your affiliates. Social media blasts. You want to offer some really good bonuses on your launch day. So when people buy your book, in addition to buying your book, you're offering some, PDF bonuses, audio file bonuses, so that people are really getting a lot of value when they buy your book.
Mm-hmm.
Organize that into a big launch day. And if you have people, 15, 20 people sending out e-blasts and doing social media for you and you're doing it, that you really want to have a launch day. And even after that, you want to have continual promotion of your book, which means you want to have that long-term sales page on your book. You want to mention it all the time. You want to continue to do social media with it. And then you can have, from time to time, have a like flash sale on it. An easy way to do a flash sale is get back in touch with your affiliates, have them send out e-blasts. You put some new bonuses on your sales page that are available for maybe 72 hours, which is going to motivate people to buy now instead of later or never. So you always want to think of your book as a product, an online product, and be, kind of tenaciously marketing it on an ongoing basis.
Definitely. And whenever I talk with my author or talk with a author about promoting the book, I always tell them you kind of want a 6-month lead up to that launch day. Is it the same for you, or does that really?
Yeah,
it doesn't really matter?
Yeah, you want to have a nice lead time, because the thing is you can start putting together your marketing copy, launch plans. You can do that as you're writing your book. You can even do it before you're writing your book. A lot of people feel like, well, I have to have my book edited and everything done before I start planning a launch. But you want to have a long ramp up period so that you can really put together a good plan and do it while you're not under a whole bunch of duress. You know,
Right.
you certainly don't want to organize a launch while you're rushing, because you want to put up, a nice, if you have a website, you're going to want to, put up a nice sales page on your website and, get all your marketing materials ready. The video, you definitely want to utilize video on your sales page. You want to definitely utilize e-blast, and again, lots of video.
Mm-hmm.
So you give yourself time to put that together. I actually wrote marketing material. One author, I wrote all the marketing materials for her book before she actually wrote the book. So you can never start too soon.
Wow. Wow. When for me, I would be worried that by writing that marketing material, it kind of locks me into a specific, I guess, story or goal for the book, and that way I can't be truly creative. How wrong am I in that assumption?
Well, you're pretty wrong. I mean,
Okay.
because you can
Not
always
just a little, but pretty wrong.
No, the reason is because as you're writing the book, let's say you've written marketing copy, you can always adjust and change and edit the marketing copy, which you will do anyway.
Mm-hmm.
You're not going to write all the marketing copy for your book, even in the middle of your book, and say it's locked in, it's done. You're going to continue to adjust it and make it better.
Okay.
So as you get creative with your book, you can get equally as creative with your marketing materials and make some adjustments and things like that. So just as you have those days you're writing your book and it's like, you've worked on it for 3 hours and you're mentally drained, but you've got still 45 minutes left at your desk or whatever. That's when you can kind of shift gears. I'm going to use a little different part of my brain and work on some of my marketing copy. So it could be an ongoing thing. You can have fun with it, and you have more fun with your marketing copy when you give yourself plenty of time to do it.
True. Yeah. That way you don't have to rush it and be done by a certain time.
You don't want it to be a last minute pressure thing. And I'm working with an author right now who has made it a last minute pressure thing.
Oh, no.
His launch is on January 7th, and he's created some very tight deadlines. And he'll tell me it took him a couple of years to write his book, from the time of thinking through it, outlining it, and then actually writing the whole book. And my question has been, well, why did you wait till the
Yeah. If you were there for a couple of years, why wait till now to write it?
Why wait till now? But then I have two other authors who I am working on their marketing copy right now, and their books are still being edited. So
nice. Yeah. So then you'd mentioned, you've got that author who's waiting till the last minute. You've got these authors who are still working on their copy. Who's been, and you don't have to name names, but has there been a client where it was like, wow, this person really gets it and we're really clicking? Well, what's been the experience like for you?
Well, working with the clients you plan ahead is great, because you can really, I call it put your hands in the clay.
Yes.
Like with these couple of writers who are planning their marketing material way ahead of time, I can work on some cool stuff for them, get on Zoom with them, go over it with them, talk about it. And it actually gets them excited about their book, because actually what it does is both of these authors, they feel great because they feel like, wow, okay, I'm working on my book, but I don't have that anxiety about, is anybody going to know about my book? Because I know I've got some cool marketing copy over here in the can that Casey's working on. So I know when the book is done, I'm going to be putting out e-blast and social media. I've got this stuff ready. So it actually gets them motivated and excited, which is a much different feeling than I've worked with other authors who've completed their book and then they go, okay, now what? How's anybody going to know about my book? And after all the work they put into a book, they have kind of a sinking feeling, that they're alone in their cave, and who's going to know about their book? But when you start working on your marketing copy ahead of time, now you have confidence. That's a big benefit of having good marketing copy well in advance, is that you have confidence, like, hey, when my book's done, I'm going to be confident about going out to the world with my book, and here's exactly what I'm going to say about it. So that just gives you a big leg up when you have that on the side going for you while you're still working on your book. So those are the happiest clients to work with. So I can get them pumped up. when people wait to the last minute, I can kind of get them excited, but at the same time, they're kind of stressed and hurried, and you know,
So it takes the fun out of it for them.
it's not as fun for them because they're rushing. They're rushing to put their marketing together, and that's never there's with I've done a lot of corporate copywriting in the past, and there's times where like something's coming up, and a vice president goes to a product manager and says, "We need this in 3 weeks," and product manager, the person I ultimately work with, is caught off guard. They have no say so. But with a book, you're writing a book. You start outlining your book. It's going to be, there's a big chunk of time between you start outlining your book and the time you publish it. So there's always lots of time to work on your marketing copy. So you should take advantage of that and not only take advantage of it, make it fun.
Yeah, definitely make it fun. So one last question before we go to break. What has the experience been like with a bad client? Do you have a story on that specifically? Like, it can't really have been worse than working with this one person. Do you have a story like that?
Oh yeah. Of course I do. Sure.
Because you already kind of touched on them before. I'm wondering, do you have a specific story?
The bad client story is this. 99% of the time when I write book marketing copy, people, they've written a book, but they don't know how to come up with marketing message. So they really want my help with that. And I'll write something that they would never have thought of, right? So they'll say, "Oh, thanks a lot. I never would have wrote this about my book," right? That's like 98% of the time. But then there's that 2% of the time, or 1% of the time, or 3% of the time, where an author, deep down inside, they want to write their own marketing copy, but they either don't want to take the time, or it's just something they want to delegate. And I'll write their copy, and their reaction, instead of saying, "Oh, thanks a lot. I never would have wrote about that about my book," they say, "Oh, thanks a lot. I never would have wrote that about my book." And what I find out at that point is that they want a writer who's going to write something that is exactly what they would write. And that's impossible to do.
Yeah, because you can't read minds.
You can't read minds. So when somebody's reaction is "I wouldn't have wrote this," and they're, instead of "I wouldn't have wrote this," that you can't win. At that point, it's a problem. So when I'm talking to an author, I really try to sense if they're going to be in that area. And if they are, what I do then, what I can offer an author is write your own marketing copy. We can get online, put it up in a Google Doc, and we can have some coaching sessions where I help you polish it up and fix it. So I have to, part of my job is to try to recognize if I've got one of those rare kind of clients, because in that situation, you can never write anything, because they'll literally come out and say, "Well, this is good, Casey, what you wrote, but it's not what I would have wrote." Obviously there's no way I can write what they would write.
Yeah. If you didn't tell me to begin with, then how am I supposed to know?
So I've been in some of those funky situations, and it's like you have to, it's like climbing out of a pit with a blindfold on or something, but you got to get it done.
True. Would you like to be a guest on the Career Challenges podcast? Go to careerchallengespodcast.com to find out how. While you're there, check out other episodes and download them through Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Stitcher, Podcast Addict, Castbox, Spotify, iHeartRadio, and more. The Career Challenges podcast is hosted by me, Kyle Weckerly. I'm a certified professional ghostwriter who works with business thought leaders and industry experts to write polished manuscripts, assess their publishing options, and create book marketing plans. I've worked with consultants, high-ticket salespeople, coaches, speakers, C-level executives, and business owners. My authors have worked for USAA, Vistage, Booz Allen Hamilton, Austin Technology Council, and the John Maxwell team. My authors want to write a book to serve as a platform for their marketing endeavors. They know that becoming an author will help them secure speaking gigs, market their expertise, promote a product or service, and more. Are you ready to turn your experience, knowledge, and stories into actionable advice and connect with your ideal client? Then visit WeckerlyWriter.com to schedule a consultation today and begin your publishing journey. That's WeckerlyWriter.com. WeckerlyWriter.com. And now, back to the Career Challenges podcast. All right, so we're back here. So Casey, building up this service of helping authors to write copy for their books, so that not only is there a great book with great marketing copy, but other people can hear about it and learn about it, and the book can go on and succeed in so many more ways than an author ever would assume it could. What have been some of those challenges that you've endured and conquered to get to where you are today?
Well, I think the biggest thing for me is, with a lot of people, is time management.
Mm-hmm.
Learning not to bite off more than I can chew. Because I like to, when I work with authors, I don't write just like maybe a back cover. I write like a bundle of marketing materials for their book. And, you're always trying to figure out how long is a project going to take. And sometimes they get delayed and it's tough to, like, I've been in a mode right now where I might have bit off a little bit more than I can chew. So I'm, okay, I've got all I can handle for the balance of the year, which is 6 weeks away to the end of the year.
Yeah.
And not even that, five weeks. But anyway, I got an email tonight from an author who's got what sounds like a very interesting book. So I'm thinking, oh, this sounds like a good book to work on. But then that voice in the back of my head saying, you can't take on more right now. You can't take on more. So, I'm going to contact the author and see if maybe we can start a little later or something like that. But time management, and because you want to do the best work you can do for people.
Mm-hmm.
But you never want to be bouncing between too many projects and rushing, and, because you want to give people your very best effort.
Definitely. So what makes a project, quote unquote, interesting for you? Is it a specific niche? Is it a specific type of story? Or is it something else that really just, you're like, wow, I want to work on this?
Well, the biggest thing that attracts me is, the very large majority of the books I work on are nonfiction books.
Mm-hmm.
And what really appeals to me is maybe when I'm working with business authors, self-development authors, people who want to get out into the world, really make an impact.
Yeah.
Not only with their book, but maybe through online programs, maybe converting their book into curriculum for an online program, also doing speaking behind their book. People who want to get out there and really make an impact with their book. They have a message that means a lot to them. They want to build an audience, build a crowd, and help people. The flip side of that is maybe a novelist who, they just want to write a book and then go back in their cave, and they don't really want to interact with the world, and they're difficult to work with. So I'm attracted to people who have passion for what they're doing,
mm-hmm.
and kind of really build a business around their book is appealing, because that's when you can feel like you can really, that's the people I can help the most. Because a lot of the authors who are in that category that I've worked with, I'll work on their book marketing copy, but I'll also help with their overall messaging for their website. If their website is, and their services or consulting services or speaking is tied into their book. So for a lot of authors, I've also wrote their speaker pages and things like that as well, or sales copy for their online products.
Mm-hmm. Awesome. So it's really about the passion for you.
Yeah. I like people who have a purpose and want to make an impact,
Yeah. So even if the topic is maybe not the most exciting, it's the passion really that matters.
I wrote medical marketing copy for 20 years. So that got boring, but I find that, again, when you get into business books, self-development books, a lot of people, their bottom line message sometimes is very similar,
mm-hmm.
but their voice is completely different, and they're drawing from a different crowd. Like, I've written self-development books for, let's say, that were heavily directed towards women,
mm-hmm.
written by a woman, and they maybe had a little softer tone to it. And I wrote a self-development book for a guy in New Jersey who was a former wise guy, a reformed wise guy.
Wow.
He was writing a self-development book for guys who wanted to get out of the mafia, basically, and live a normal life. So that was, and a lot of the principles in his book were very similar to the self-development principles, in a more feminine book. But their voices and approach and style was different. So that was fun for me to write.
I'm surprised that apparently there's a big enough crowd of mafia guys who want to get out that's a viable market.
Fun book to work on. And this dude, I'm writing for him, and we're on Zoom, And
Mm-hmm.
he, on one of our meetings, he had a friend with him who was going to help with some of the marketing, right? And his friend looked like a dude who could have been in The Sopranos or Goodfellas or something like that.
Oh my
Well, I'm
gosh.
talking to the author. His friend is just kind of staring at me, you know, and it started to unnerve me a little bit. The dude was a little scary looking. So I thought, well, I'm going to just try to talk to the guy for a second and try to ease the tension here. So I said to this scary dude, I go, well, you know, I've been talking to the author's name was Jay. I go, I've been talking to Jay for a little while, and, you know, I know a lot about Jay and what he does, but, you know, what do you do? And without flinching, the dude looks at me and he says, I change people's minds.
Huh.
And I thought, okay.
For some reason, I'm not inspired by that. I'm not like, well, change my mind. It's like, I want to get away from you.
Yeah, I change people's minds, and I could just picture him busting someone's leg, you know, as he's convincing them to see things differently. I thought, you know, that could have been a great line in a Martin Scorsese film, you know, at some point. You know, I change people's minds.
Wow.
Buy
Wow.
this book or else, you know.
Yeah, that's one way to do it. There was a book where, like, apparently a guy, an author, a mafia guy was helping an author to become a quote unquote bestseller, but that just put him in the mafia's pocket, and that was a way for them to move money. I can't remember what the name of the book is. It was so long ago that I heard it, but the mafia thing is what tripped it for me. But that kind of sounds like maybe that could have been an opportunity for you. You know, you work with the mafia, get some good sales, but, you know, you got to do some favors down the road.
Yeah, yeah, I don't know.
So maybe you dodged a bullet there.
I did,
Yeah. So
literally. Probably.
literally. All right. So earlier you mentioned that you were working in the Hollywood, writing scripts, and I remember we had talked before. You said your first job was a script reader. I'm curious about that. Like, how did you get a job as a script reader? Did you, fill out an online application?
No, there was no this was like in the 80s, so there was no online applications back then. But no, I was in film school at Loyola Marymount University. I won their top screenwriting award 2 years in a row. And a friend of mine got in as a secretary with Anson Williams, who was on Happy Days with Ron Howard. And at the time, he was partners with Ron Howard. Mm-hmm. This is when, in the mid-'80s, when Ron Howard made Cocoon.
Oh, yeah, I remember watching that.
Yeah, so I was working for them at that point. And so my friend said, you know, Ron Howard had his offices on 20th Century Fox lot, and around the corner on Century Park East, Anson Williams had offices where he kind of oversaw the television development end of what they were doing together. So a friend of mine got in as a secretary with Anson Williams, and she said, you know, he's looking for some readers, an intern, you know, story development intern. And I suggested you, told him you had won these writing awards. Why don't you come on in? Could you come in Thursday at 2:00? So I said, sure. Just like, you know, when you're a kid growing up and you're 16, hey, there's a job opening at the gas station. It was the exact same thing.
Yeah.
So I went to Century Park East, went up the elevator. I come walking, and there's my friend sitting at her desk, and she goes, yeah, he's waiting for you. So I walk into this room, and there's Potsy Weber waiting to interview me. And
wow.
We had a really good conversation. Super, super nice guy, very nice man. And he was trying to be very, very helpful with me. And we had a good chat, and he gave me 2 scripts, and he goes, read these 2 scripts and let me know what you think of them and give me a little evaluation. Because he had already read the 2 scripts, and he knew how he felt about them.
Oh.
So he wanted to see if my sensibilities were similar to his.
Mm-hmm.
So I read the 2 scripts, came back about 3 or 4 days later, and gave him my evaluation. He said, oh, okay, very cool. And he said, okay, you're in. So.
Wow. So all you had to do was read the scripts and, I guess, read his mind?
No, I just gave a very honest, because I knew from being in film school and writing scripts how to evaluate a screenplay and look at story and structure and all of that stuff. So I just went through these scripts and gave him a very honest evaluation, and it matched up with how he felt about the stories.
Cool.
And I just started hanging out. I would go there a few days a week and hang out in his office and read scripts. And
mm-hmm.
he would bring in bloopers and blunders from Happy Days, behind the scenes stuff, and I'd watch those at lunchtime. And he told me lots and lots of really good stories, and it was fun. I got to meet Ron Howard several times. go to his private screenings for Cocoon, which was a lot of fun. I still got the invitation and all that stuff.
So was Steve Gutenberg there too for the private screenings?
No, he had a series of screenings, and they were pretty small. There was only about 50 people at each one. So Steve Gutenberg was not at the one I was at. But I did get to ask Ron Howard afterwards. He said, I said, and I was like 21, 22, so I was kind of nervous. I go, really good film. How did you know when you had a good film on your hands? And he said, when I was leaving a lot of good stuff on the cutting room floor, I knew I had a good movie. So I remember that.
Wow, it's got to be rough when you know you got to cut out a lot of stuff.
It's every film's like that, yeah.
Yeah. So then, after script reading, did you start pitching scripts to?
I had agents for screenwriting. I had an agent, and then I signed with an agent, and then a couple weeks later, if you look back in Hollywood history, there was this really long writer's strike, about 8 months, Writers Guild strike in the late 80s, and I got caught up right in the middle of that. So nothing happens during a strike. So my agent went out, had to go out and get another job. So I lost my agent, and then I wrote some TV spec scripts. Got another agent with those scripts, and that agent got fired.
Oh no!
And
did you fire him, or did
the agency fired him? They basically cut back, and I had scripts all over town through this agent. So I said to this agent, I go, you got fired. Well, does that mean I'm not being represented by your agency? And he said, well, you're going to have to call the head of the agency, who was this guy named Tim. I won't say his last name. So I called Tim up, and he was this British dude. And I said, Tim, I got scripts all over through John, all over town. What's the deal? He goes, no, we're letting all his clients go.
Oh, no.
I said, well, I've got scripts, a bunch of different places right now with your agency's name on the. And he kind of paused, and he said, well, I bet you feel like you got a bit pooped on, didn't you, Casey? Like that. And I went, but he didn't say pooped. He said something.
Yes, of course.
And, that was demoralizing. So it's a crazy business.
Yeah. So then what prompted you to want to leave that? I'm hoping it wasn't just that one incident.
Well, there were a lot of incidents, but really where I messed up is we're constantly being told, if you don't make it by the time you're 30, go sell shoes or something, get out of town. So I was approaching 30, and I thought, well, I'm getting older now, and I got to get some responsible kind of job or whatever. And now that I'm over 50, I think, God, I was a kid when I was 30, so.
Yeah.
So I think I would have pursued it longer if I had to do it again. But it was a fun adventure. I got to do a lot of cool stuff. Like I got to hang out on the set of Cheers for a season, because the script supervisor on Cheers used to be the script supervisor for Happy Days. So Anson got me in, and I would sit on the set of Cheers when they were doing their final rehearsals before they would shoot. So they would do their rehearsal in the afternoon and then go have dinner and come back in the evening and film in front of a live studio audience. So I would be there when they were doing their rehearsals, which was fun because the rehearsals were always a little more bar humor-ish than what ended up on TV, but they would have to cut stuff because of the censors, but, and I got to be on the set of Family Ties and meet all of them and Seinfeld and stuff like that. So it was fun.
Awesome. Cool. So I forget who it was who said it. It was some independent filmmaker, but he said, basically you got to do 10 years of writing scripts before you actually get good. Do you feel you had to do those 10 years of writing scripts, or were you already there?
You're always trying to get better and better. So I won these awards, so I felt like I was good, but looking back, you have to continually get better. There's this saying in Hollywood, you can't just write crap plus one. Meaning everybody, there's a ton of people who watch TV, network television, because at this time there was no Netflix.
No Netflix or Disney Plus even now,
Yeah, it was the 3 networks basically. So you'd watch those shows or watch movies and you'd go, I can write that crap. But the problem is in the Writers Guild, there's only about 5% of the guild makes a living off of writing film or television, right? So there's already a very large amount of people in the guild who can write crap plus one, but there's just not nearly as much work as there are writers. So I learned that, well, you can't just, well, I can write that crap too. There's already a ton of people who can write that crap too. You have to really write stuff that really stands out. Like I had agents, who I would try to get in with or get signed with, and they would send me a letter saying, your spec scripts that you put together are very good, but they're no better than 15 other people I'm already representing. So you have to, your stuff has to be better. So it's very challenging.
Yeah.
Yeah, hardly anybody makes money in that business. It's kind of a myth about Hollywood is you get the 1%ers and then you've got everybody else.
Wow. So even today with all the streaming services, Apple Plus and Disney Plus that just launched, they're finally getting into the streaming wars here. And, Netflix and Hulu and Amazon Prime. Is it just more of the same?
Well, I think there's more opportunities, especially for television.
Mm-hmm.
Back in the 80s, there still is that snobby distinction that divided feature films from television.
Mm-hmm.
Now there's television, there's a lot of innovative stuff on television that I think more so than movies, because they've always played it safe with movies, but now more than ever, they don't want to take chances because everybody's going for grand slam home runs and blockbusters, and they're spending over $100 million in a film. So they're very, very safe. That's why you see Spider-Man 5, Pirates of the Caribbean 17, comic book Batman 12, and they want safe, establish a franchise that they can keep going back to because it's a safe bet. So, that's why you don't see nearly as many original, good character-driven story films, because if you go back like to the 70s when there's a lot of really cool films coming out in the 60s, studios, they use a baseball analogy, were willing to hit singles and doubles.
Yeah.
They would make a movie for $5 million, and if it grossed $40 million, they'd have a huge hit. Cocoon, when Cocoon came out, opening weekend was like $8 million. Well, it was a nice hit, and it would be, it didn't become an extreme blockbuster, but it became a very good quality movie that definitely made money. These days, an $8 million opening would be like a disaster because films cost $100 million. In any movie, a film that cost $100 million to make has to make $250 million to break even.
Ouch.
Because of marketing and distribution cost on top of what it actually costs to make the film. So everything has to be so big now, and it's really, that's why you don't have as many good character-driven romantic comedies and things like that,
Mm-hmm.
and it's just, or why they're always using the same A-list actors over and over again until they don't have a hit, and then they get rid of them, especially women. Women, they get to be over 35 and they're not as pretty, and they go to the next. It's very,
very cutthroat.
Very extremely cutthroat. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So are you glad that you're now in copywriting?
Well, yeah, because I've been in it for a long time now. So I've made a good living as a writer, and I've been writing a lot since I was a little kid. And when I was growing up, my two loves were playing baseball and writing. And I've been working at home now for 20 years as a successful copywriter and making my own hours, and been very fulfilling. So I would have had a lot of regrets if I went from screenwriting to selling auto parts or something like that.
Yeah, definitely.
Which is my family's business. That's why I said that. So.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Well, I mean, those aren't mutually exclusive. You go from writing to hawking this stuff. And, when I'm still trying to get this ghostwriting up and going full time. So I'm still having to take these other odd jobs. And, part of me is like, if I had to do this every day, I don't think I could cut it. I mean, there's some people are like, well, I have to do it to survive. Part of me is like, I would just move in with my parents or something. Well, I can't do that because I got a family. Anyway, but there's that, like, I just can't do a normal job. I have to write. I have to do that.
Yeah, well, that's how I was. So stick with that.
Definitely.
Because if you don't, you'll just be full of regret when you're older.
Yeah, and be miserable. And part of that is making other people miserable too. And I don't want to do that. I don't want to be that kind of jerk. I mean, I'll be rude when I have to. I'll be aggressive if I have to, but I don't want to be that kind of jerk. Now,
you want to be happy and satisfied and fulfilled, because in the end, that's what life is about joy, and you want to have self joy, and you only get that when you're doing something that you enjoy doing.
Mm-hmm.
So you absolutely have to do that. Otherwise you'll be older and you'll think, why didn't I take the risk? And
Yeah.
Yeah.
And also, it's funny, kind of getting off of that topic though. You had mentioned, you're really into baseball, and that you didn't want to go into sales. What I've learned, I guess, and this probably isn't exactly true, but from my very uneducated and unsalesman-like background, it seems like you have to know a lot about sports in order to be good at sales. Because I had worked with this guy, and we went out to go assess this property because he was going to go put in fences, I think it was. And he was talking about fences for maybe 15 minutes, the actual business that he was there to get paid to do.
Yeah.
And then the other 45 minutes they talked about their alma mater and how hard it was to get tickets to the football game, and you could trade them with this and do all that. And it's like 45 minutes of sports talk and 15 minutes of actual sales talk. And I'm like, this guy's going to get the contract because they're all chummy with over their alma mater and their football team.
Well, it's building relationships.
Yeah.
It's just like I used to play a lot of golf. I don't play golf anymore, but I used to golf a lot. And there's the old thing that, the business is done on the golf course. Well, it's not true. The relationships are built on the golf course. You just horse around and have a lot of fun, talk and bond with people. Mm-hmm. That's what it's about. And then things come out of that. It's just like, if you're going to market a book, you want to have people also market it on your behalf. Influential people market it on your behalf. So you want to build relationships with people. And that takes time, just like making friends. And you make friends, and that's really what you're doing, is making friends. So that's what sales is, really. I mean, because I have a service that I sell, and I'm gonna have online products shortly that I sell. So, and that's, it's just building relationships is the key to any kind of sales. I grew up in a sales home, so that's the biggest thing you can do, is build relationships.
Mm-hmm. Well, my grandpa was a salesman, so he's always talking sales, whereas my dad is an academic. So I grew up in a more academic, intellectual kind of family. So for me, going into sales was so far out of what I was comfortable with. So I've always tried to avoid, quote unquote, sales.
Well, it's the old, it's know me, like me, trust me.
Sure.
So just like it is with your friends. So it's, and there's a story, if you get a minute for a story.
Sure.
For people, especially if you're an author and you're listening and you're thinking, well, I don't like sales. How am I going to sell my book? Mm-hmm. There's a story of the three plumbers. Okay. So you move into a neighborhood, and there's a knock at your door. You're there for a week, you're still unpacking your boxes, and then there's a knock on your door, and it's a plumber. Mm-hmm. The plumber says, hi, I hear you're new to the neighborhood. I just want to tell you about my plumbing services. I do this, I do that. We do this, we do that. We're running a special, blah, blah, blah. And you're getting this sales pitch, and you're like, shut the door, whatever.
Yeah.
And a week later, there's a knock at your door, and it's another plumber saying, hi, and you're new to the neighborhood. I just want to tell you about my plumbing services. I do this, I do that. I do this, we do this. Here's a brochure. I'm running a special, another sales pitch. And you're like, geez. So about 5 more days go by, and there's a third knock at the door. You open the door, and it's another plumber. And the plumber says, hi, I'm Jim the plumber, and I just want to introduce myself. And I want to give you a tip sheet. It's called 5 Things You Should Know About How to Pick the Plumber That's Just Right for You. Mm-hmm. And he walks away. A couple weeks later, that first plumber comes back, knocks on the door. Hi, I'm just coming back to say hi again. I do this, we do that. I do this, we do that. We're running a special, blah, blah, blah. And you shut the door. A few days later, that second plumber comes back by, does the same sales spiel. Mm-hmm. A few more days go by, that third plumber comes back, and he says, hey, this is Jim. Just wanted to say hi again. I wanted to give you another tip sheet. This one's called, 5 basic plumbing repairs you could probably do by yourself. That's it. He goes away. A month later, a month goes by, and all of a sudden, geez, you actually need a plumber. Which one are you going to call?
Yeah, the third one.
Third one every time. Mm-hmm. So that's, if you're an author or you have online programs, that's how you, quote unquote, do sales. You give people valuable information. You're a go-getter. You try to be helpful. You try to provide value. You're friendly with people, and always think, how can I provide value? That's how you build up the know me, like me, trust me. And then it makes it much easier to sell your stuff. Just like that third plumber.
Mm-hmm.
It's called generating a sale without making a sales pitch. So that third plumber totally won your trust. It was a no-brainer which guy you're going to call. And he's the only one out of the three who didn't make a sales pitch.
Yeah. Or didn't try to pressure you to buy something.
Yeah.
Right then.
No, he gave you information that could help you.
Mm-hmm.
And when you needed that service, automatically you called him.
Mm-hmm.
So that's, if you've written a book and you're not a salesperson, that's how you can go around marketing your book. Give away information related to your book. Be of value. Give people information they could use.
Mm-hmm. Well, you've just given value as well. So, I mean, this is really working out for you.
This is, so that's what you do, is if you want people to engage with you, put out a lot of value, and it'll come looping back to you.
Definitely. So before we run out of time here, because you've obviously given us lots of value just in all the stories you've been providing and industry insight as well. What's next for Casey Demchak?
Well, what I'm working on now, it's going to be coming up in early 2020. So if you're listening to this in 2020, this may have already happened.
Yeah.
I work directly with a lot of authors writing their marketing copy. And my next thing that I'm working on is I'm going to be launching a couple programs, online 5-module self-paced programs on how to write your own book marketing copy. So I'm going to have a program for nonfiction books and also novels. And in it, you're going to get detailed instruction, video instruction, me at my desk, teaching you everything I know about how to write back cover copy, sales page copy for your book, Amazon description copy, e-blast copy, how to write that 30-second pitch or that slogan, how to write a nice about the author page. Mm-hmm. And I'm going to have a lot of bonuses connected with that program, about how to repurpose your copy, bonus ideas that you can market along with your books. So I want to make it very straightforward, simple, step-by-step, here's everything I know, and make it simple so that instead of teaching you about electricity, I just want to teach you how to flip the light switch on,
There you go.
Very straightforward. And because that's my way of reaching out and helping more authors who maybe, understand the value of having good book marketing copy, but maybe they can't afford, or they don't want to pay for a writer, but they can pay a reasonable price for a program where I'm sitting there teaching them everything I know about how to do it themselves.
Awesome. And are you going to provide me with a link so I can put that in the show notes?
Absolutely.
Yes. Yeah. Let's do that. Because this will drop sometime early 2020. We're recording it 2019. So I can definitely get that link ahead of time and put it in the show notes.
Yeah. And another thing you can give people too is I've got a ebook. You can get off a free ebook you can get off my website called 7 Must-Know Copywriting Secrets to Sell More Books. Mm-hmm. And anybody can get that anytime you can go to caseydemchak.com/secrets.
Definitely. And I'm going to be downloading that after we get off here too, just for myself.
Yeah. So I've tried to pack a bunch of value into that as well.
Awesome. Well, Casey Demchak, thank you so much for being on the Career Challenges podcast with me today.
Kyle, it's been my pleasure. It's been a lot of fun, and it's just been a good time. So definitely. I hope everybody gets something out of this.
I'm sure they did. At least I got something out of it. So, there's a win there. Thank you for listening to the Career Challenges podcast. Don't forget to subscribe and like the Career Challenges podcast on your favorite podcasting app. Visit careerchallengespodcast.com for more information. Schedule your free consultation with Kyle Weckerly by visiting weckerlywriter.com today. That's WECKERLYWRITER.com. Thank you.